and also our partner organization. They are also an organization dedicated to putting youth voices at the forefront. So now, please join me in welcoming UNICEF Innocenti. Facilitators, please take it away.
Thank you, Manya, for the very, very generous introductions. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, as I know we have people tuning in from literally all over the world. I just want to start by expressing my gratitude, and I'm sure my fellows' gratitude for this space where we can share our thoughts and interact with an intergenerational group, and especially young people. My name is Ijun Kim, and I'm here as part of the Youth Engagement and Strategy team at UNICEF Innocenti. We work with children and young people to enhance the organization's anticipatory capacity, and our main way of doing that is through the Youth Foresight Fellowship. The program aims to build research and foresight capacities of young people and encourage them to design youth-led and youth-centered research to create enabling environments for meaningful youth engagement. Last year, our 12 fellows led national projects on really a wide range of topics, from climate change to technology. Their research findings were featured in our annual report called the Young Visionaries. And today, we have three of the alumni here with us, May, Oussama, and Zahanath, who you will get to know better very, very soon. So all three of them were drawn to exploring the futures of education, as you could tell, possibly by the title of this session. And they really wanted to explore what those futures could look like with young people in their communities. So through this panel discussion today, they will share what motivated them to pursue this topic and some of the key findings they surfaced through their research. After that short panel discussion, we hope to invite all of you in the audience to do a very simple exercise with us before we open up for any questions or reflection, and then later wrapping up the section. So without further ado, let us get started with the panel discussion first. I want to invite Zahana first to ask you, what brings you here? Why are you here? And if you could also touch upon why education is so important to you, that would be amazing.
Hi, am I audible? First of all, thank you so much for having me, and I'm really glad to be joining the second time. Last time was my first time, and I'm glad to be here again in this space and sharing this space with you all. My name is Zahanath Zuhri. I started my journey into foresight just about over a year ago in the Youth Foresight Fellowship from the Maldives. And coming from Maldives, we as a country, many people, many young people, including myself, believe that due to the climate emergency crisis that's going on, we as a country may not have a future. So in Maldives, we don't really talk about the future a lot. And I was completely new to the foresight and future literacy process before the fellowship. And because of this, I conducted a youth participatory foresight research in Maldives on the future of education. And I asked adolescents and young people what they envisioned the future of schools will look like to promote access to quality education, no matter where they are. Because in Maldives, due to the geographical isolation, we are a bunch of islands. And because of this geographical isolation, it's not been easy thing to provide quality access to all islands. And due to this, many people might internally migrate towards the city area of Maldives just to access education. And this includes me as well. My parents sent me to the capital city when I was very little to attain quality education, while they stayed back in the islands to support me. And even though my situation got improved, I really grew up never feeling like I belonged anywhere. I didn't belong in the city for sure, and rarely could visit my island. So I really lost touch with my island customs and traditions, which I really regret. And this is a huge thing that happens to many children and young people. So, and this was the reason why I choose the topic of education and really ask the young people what can we do to change this situation. So yeah, that's all.
Thank you, Zahanath, for not only sharing why education means a lot to you, but specifically the personal journey that you went through, that taught you why, mm, yes, education is important, but sometimes because lack of access or the quality that still needs to be improved, that there are some compromises that come along, and that really drove you to try to reimagine what education could look like. Thank you. Oussama, would you also like to share what brings you here and why education means so much to you?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me here. I hope I'm audible. Thank you. As my name is mentioned, my name is Oussama bin Muhammad Ali. I am originally from the Comoros Islands. I am a teacher, English teacher, and the reason why I am here today, I would say, is as an educator, I got to witness firsthand the importance of education for youth and the consequences of different things that happen around the students and how it may lead to them not having access to education and what we can do to help them. Um, as an educator, I came across several situations where a lot of students didn't get the opportunity to continue their studies, and looking into it further with my research with UNICEF, UNICEF, and the workshops that we did with the youth, we realized that it's mainly because of climate change that's happening in the islands, rising sea levels, a lot of those emerging issues that came up. And the impact of climate change in education is so drastic that a lot of youth fear that in the near future, they will be impacted in such a way that it will result in the students not being able to complete their education, or even we are seeing the impact of this currently. And I wanted to gather youth so that they can be the ones who will be voicing their opinion, so that they can say that we are seeing this is happening currently. We would like to see these changes being made as soon as possible. That's one of the main reasons why I was a youth fellow. And thanks to UNICEF Innocenti, we got all the skills and tools needed to do this. And we gathered youth on different islands, and they expressed their views that they are currently facing, their concerns that they're facing, and they gave the recommendations that they'd like to see happening in the islands. And thanks to that, we got to do research. We got to write out the Young Visionaries report, which was published, which listed all of the information that the youth had. Thank you.
Thank you, Sama. One thing that I really take away from what you shared just now is the importance of autonomy for children and young people to decide for themselves what they want their learning experiences, their schools, and just education as a whole to look like. And I am looking forward to you sharing a little bit more about that in your next few remarks. And we also have May. May, would you like to touch on this question as well?
Yeah. Am I audible? Yeah. So hello, Mingalaba. So greetings from sunny Myanmar. And first of all, thanks for the opportunity. And my name is Mipyu Ao, and I am a final year computer science student. And I'm here today as a former UNICEF Youth Foresight Fellow to share about my experience working on the future of education. So as someone who has been grown up in a country with the world longest civil war, like access to education has been always a challenge for young people, also including me. For example, like I was passionate about computers from a young age, but I only had a chance to use it when I was 18. So education in Myanmar is not a right, but for many is like a privilege. And things got worse when like COVID-19 and the political crisis happened, and it widens the education gap. And by 2022, like 8 million children were out of school, and the number keeps rising. And so seeing these challenges make me question the future of education in Myanmar. and pushed me to seek the solutions. And yeah, I got the opportunity, like I was selected for the UNICEF Youth Foresight Fellowship 2023, and there I got to learn about like foresight is not just about predicting the future, it is about shaping it. Like, and it empowers young people to be resilient and future ready, which is more important now than ever. And yeah, with this understanding, I focus my research on education and work closely with the UNICEF Myanmar office and also with the Europort, which I have been as a youth volunteer right now. And we explore like how we can create better opportunities for youths in Myanmar. And yeah, that's what brings me here today to share about my journey and discuss like how we can build a better future where education is truly accessible for all.
Thank you, May, for two things. First, the stark reminder that we do still live in a world where for many children and young people, education is unfortunately not a right. And in fact, it's a privilege. So thank you for that reminder. But also thank you for showing what it means to persevere. You said you've always been passionate to learn more about computers, and despite the challenges, you still made it happen, even though it happened many years later than you had wanted to. So I find that really empowering. Thank you for sharing. So now we get into the more future focus section of the panel discussion. My next question to our panelists is, during your research, and I briefly mentioned this in the introduction, that our fellows, and especially the 3 fellow alumni that we have here, led their own national research projects on a topic that they felt very passionate about and they felt was the most relevant to the local communities there and especially the young people there. So as you were doing this research, which spanned a couple months, again, huge shout out to the 3 of you for making that happen. What emerging issues did you identify? So emerging issues can be defined as things that have a high potential for creating change, but not a lot of people know about it yet. So what emerging issues did you identify while working with young people through your research project? May, would you like to kick us off this time?
Yeah. So to discuss about that, like I did some discussions and workshop with young people from Myanmar, and from the discussions, I have identified many emerging issues like they want like youth-led informal educations were emerging, and also there are a mismatch between the skills and market demands and such things. But one highlight I want to say today is about the brain drain problem that is happening. Like the brain drain problem means which is the loss of young talents from our country due to the migration to another country. Like Myanmar is losing its young talents at an alarming rate. The ongoing conflicts, economic instabilities, and the failing education systems have left many youths with no choice but to seek future in another countries or as well. And a 2024 Europort Myanmar poll about migration, in that we found that half of the respondents want to migrate to another countries to search for better opportunities. So this is not just a number, not just a statistics. It is like a warning for us. Like when skills youth leave, like Myanmar can lose its futures leaders, innovators, and workforce, and this can deepen the cycles of instability. And young people should be the driving force of change, but instead, in our case, it is like they have been driven out. And so, yeah, if this continues, like Myanmar, our country can have risks in losing an generation, like an entire generation, one that can have rebuilt the nation. So yeah, this is the one highlight emerging issue that I want to say. So yeah, maybe Zahana, can you share your story? Yeah.
I was just gonna say that that was one of the emerging issues that also came up in Maldives. There was a lot of discussion on about moving to other countries because so many things. So we lack opportunity, we lack access to tertiary education most of the time, since we have only like one university and 2 colleges in Maldives. It's very common for young people to already go abroad to attain their higher education. So this was like a common discussion even in Maldives, actually, very interesting. For me, what a lot of there was a lot of emerging issues that came up, but there was one thing that stood out to me. And in my workshops, I did using the images of the future and the future's triangle. So those were the 2 foresight tools I used to engage young people in these discussions. And one of the emerging issues that came up was actually drawn up by the young adolescents in the room. So I engaged a full classroom of young people, and one of the girls who were aged 12 to 16 actually drew an image of a young girl in the future 2050, where the girl was she couldn't. So sorry. So this was the image. She couldn't really focus. They were saying that she couldn't focus in her classroom because everything was so digitalized around her. So in the background, you see all the little things that's written, that's apparently error messages. So because of all the overstimulation and everything becoming so digitalized, the students in the classroom could not focus. And this image stood out to me because you would think digitalization would be such a good thing, but here the students really were worried about the extent of digitalization. And the students shared that they don't think, in the future we would get to really interact with their classmates and teachers, as no human connection is needed anymore in schools because all the lessons are delivered in digital platforms. So having this conversation, it just made me realize, conversations such as this is really essential in really identifying these emerging threats and, that could impact the child rights agenda. As stated in the Children's Rights Convention, children have a right to be part of any convention about the future they will inherit. So using the foresight process and applying this, we are in turn creating a space, a liberating space, I would like to say, where young people and children really imagine different things, a different world for them, and break the confines they are currently in, the current thinking, and come up with these emerging issues and opportunities. So I just wanted to share this one thing about this that came up. Yeah.
I'd like to come in and say, it's honestly scary and listening to May and Zahanath mentioning like the brain drain, like the youth migrations to other countries. It's kind of funny because it's happening in all 3 countries where we did research on education, and our research kind of focused on different aspects of education. I focus mainly on climate change and its impact to education. And at the end of the day, there's several emerging issues that came up. However, the striking ones I'd say is the raising temperatures that's happening in the country and its impact it's having in the country. And climate change as a whole is resulting in students facing several challenges, either going to schools, either staying attentive in schools, or just parents having the ability to provide a basic necessity. For example, a farmer, because of climate change, they'll see that the crops will not develop for that year, and they would not be able to get an income, which will result in them not be able to sending the children to schools. And the infrastructure, we are currently facing a lot of infrastructure. The infrastructure, it's a huge problem in Comoros, and we've got purely built infrastructure And climate change is just making it worse. Like recently, there was heavy rains and flooding that happened, and this resulted in a lot of schools facing damages. And you have students in the classroom who are sitting in the classroom with fear that the roof might fall someday, or what happens if we are in class and heavy rain just suddenly happen and a flood just happens. And a lot of the youth, they would prefer to study abroad. And at the end of the day, that say that I prefer, after finishing my studies abroad, to stay abroad, to have my family abroad instead of coming back home and developing my country. Because coming back home, they wouldn't want their children to face the similar challenges and situations that they face as a youth. So, like, it's really, really worrisome, and a lot of youth shared their concerns that if if we do not resolve this, the current situation, like the brain drain would continue, and students would face a lot of these issues later onwards.
Thank you to the three of you for sharing some of the emerging issues. And I agree, it is quite concerning. But I think the value of identifying emerging issues in advance is that we can identify these signals for any challenges and risks in the future and be more proactive in addressing it, right? And another thing that I would like to highlight or pull out from all of your sharings is just how interconnected education is to all other parts of our lives. For example, you know, from Myanmar, from the Maldives, from Comoros, all very different countries, but somehow brain drain is a common challenge that all young people and, everyone in the country is facing and really grappling with. And that shows that education is not something that is siloed and stands alone, but is very much impacted by other parts of society and in turn impacts other parts of society as well. So I wonder if a lot of the challenges that we're facing actually deserve a much more multi-sectoral approach, more creative and innovative thinking. And I think that's where young people come in. And that's what you're trying to say, right? The work that you do, working directly with young people and doing your best to elevate and amplify their voices in national, regional, and global platforms. I think that's also one of the messages that we're really, really trying to get through. So thank you again for highlighting some of the emerging issues. So I did say some of the emerging issues were quite concerning, but we cannot always be all doom and gloom. So I want to refresh the mood a little bit and ask you a question on the other side of the spectrum. I'm sure as you are working with young people and adolescents in your communities, they also had some hopes and ambitions for the future. So in the long research that you did in your countries, what preferred futures did young people share? And if there were any ideas that came up, what can we do now to achieve those visions? Let's see, Oussama, would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you, Eugene. So as I did like workshops on different islands with different groups of youth from different backgrounds, mainly youth in NGOs who focus on education. A lot of them, the main recommendation that was heard from most of the groups was they would love to see an investment in sustainable infrastructure, because in the future, like we anticipate extreme weather events, and infrastructure for children and young people must be designed accordingly. So if we have learning facilities that are equipped with cooling systems that are built in a way that can withstand harsh weathers, this will ease students' concerns in the classrooms. And second recommendation that came up was an increased access to education. Like education isn't one of the primary how do I say this? Education isn't one of the primary aspects that are being invested into our country, unfortunately. And it's one of the things that result in a brain drain in the country. So if we can have an increased access to education, especially for the young children, like from an early age, primary school, secondary school, and then later onwards into like tertiary education. It will result in more students feeling that if they stay in the country, they will be able to get a better education and they'll be able to make the change that's needed in the country rather than going abroad and studying abroad and finding work abroad and not wanting to come back because of the situations that their children would face if they come back to the country. And lastly, a lot of the youth, they envisioned a future where they would have their children's going to school, having a good education. The teachers or professors at university are providing a stable, a good education for them, where and the parents, as parents, would feel that their children are safe in a safe environment where they wouldn't have any worries that my child is going to school, would something happen if they are in school? And yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sama. Your point on sustainable infrastructure is, I think, something that deserves a lot more thought and study into, because we already have so many countries and regions and neighborhoods that are struggling to provide safe spaces for children and young people to learn. On top of that, we are now facing the ramifications of climate change, which makes it even more difficult to provide those spaces, right? But there is definitely a bright side. Every once in a while, I tried to look on the web, whether it's on social media or journal articles, very wide range. I know of credibility, but I try to find little nuggets of hope. And it's really fascinating that there is actually so much innovation out there, in this case specifically regarding infrastructure and building materials that are being created and that are being tested, but we just don't hear much of them yet. So my hope, to add to your point, is that innovation is not only accelerated, but it's shared and it's celebrated more widely, so we actually know that these things are possible. And another thing that you mentioned, young people, their drive to move to another country is not only about the lack of opportunities for themselves, but it's also in consideration of their children. And that kind of mindset, thinking of future generations, I think that's actually a really wonderful mindset that we all already embody to some way, right? When we're thinking about our children, whether that child is 5 years old or not yet born, we are already thinking about the future. But maybe now it's time for us to expand on that way of thinking a little bit and think of what future generations as a whole means and what we can do for them. So thank you so much for sharing, Oussama. May, were there any preferred futures and visions of the future that really caught your interest and you would like to share? May, can you hear us? May, I see you're back. You were sitting very still for a couple seconds, and I assumed you were frozen. But I wanted to invite you next to share any visions of the preferred future that really kind of stuck with you, resonated with you, and if you have any thoughts on what we can do now to achieve those visions.
Yeah, so am I audible now? Yeah. So I got frozen because of the electricity cut happening here. And so yeah, like that the situation here is like there are like the unstable conditions in here. So before doing the workshops, if I ask someone like what kind of profile future they want, like they would say it's very difficult to say, and they would just talk about like if the current issues persist and if this is still happening, they just answer based on that. But after doing the foresight workshops and they were introduced about the foresight tools, they got that hope like we can have alternative futures, not just about the things that based on the present situations like that. The foresight tools help us think about the to anticipate the challenges and what we can do what we can think for the solutions for that. And from the workshops, like young people envision a future, like in 10 years, like they envision a future where Myanmar has an inclusive and resilient education system. And they think like if the conflicts ends and the country can invest more in education, then more youths will have access to quality education. Like they also suggest like they can more alternative education can be extended, like the not just the traditional learning, but more community-based learning programs or online education or vocational trainings. They can help them get access to more quality education. And also they suggest like practical based education would be more suitable for them over formal education, because from the pool survey results of Europort Myanmar, like more than half of the pool respondents expressed a preference for vocational training over university educations. I have also mentioned the problem like there have been a mismatch between the skills and the market demand. So in this way, they can get more job opportunities, and the brain drain problems, the kind of problems can be resolved. And so, yeah, to achieve these, like actions should be taken. And for the actions, like they want, we have to ensure safe learning spaces, then expanding access to digital tools and creating more job opportunities for educated youth. And with these efforts, I believe Myanmar, our country, can have a lower risk in losing an entire generation of talent. Mhm.
Thank you so much for sharing, May. And I think the really powerful message you left at the end, education is not only, you know, a phase you go through or just just a box that you have to take, but it is actually about cultivating generations of young people who can later step up or even now step up, right? I shouldn't say later, that can step up and advocate for the changes they want to see or lead community-based movements, including community-based learning. So thank you so much for sharing, May. And Zahanath, now I would like to invite you to share any preferred features and some recommendations you might have.
So before I get to the futures vision, I think that it's important to know the reason why they approached it. In Maldives, as I said, you cannot access critical infrastructure in the rural island areas. Only it's very centralized in the city area. So access to well-stocked libraries, computer labs, and even science laboratories, the access is very less in the rural islands. So because of this, when I asked young people what young people really wanted to decentralize the education system. Decentralized as in they wanted these access to these libraries, laboratories, and science labs that are closer to their home islands. They do understand it's not possible to provide access to all of these in every single island. So they really wanted to see one island close to the vicinity, the cluster of islands, have this access. So young people really imagined a future where the education system will be decentralized, but also adopt a hybrid model of learning, using in-class classroom learning and also digital platforms, so that you can have access to quality education, and children and young people in the future can continue their education regardless of their island. So they don't have, so especially like the children in the island region, they were sharing with me that they are all right to go to the close island nearby to do science labs, experiments or some things, but they still prefer that in-person learning where they get to interact with their teachers and classmates. So I think this model would be really strong here, and I really hope this is something we are able to achieve, because and I would like to say one of the comments even says, how can the role of youth be enhanced in decision-making process? I like to share that, all these workshops were made possible based on like the principles of this workshop were the meaningful youth engagement principles, which we employed to really get these discussions going. And this is what made it possible for young people to really participate and share their thoughts, because it's, as young people, we embody the future. And I think youth foresight and using meaningful youth engagement principles, we can really engage young people in these decision-making spaces that really impact our life. So just a reflection on that as well.
Thank you so much, Zahanath, for sharing that reflection. And actually, I know this wasn't a question that I asked of you before, but I wonder if you could give me one keyword that comes to mind when you think about not only youth engagement, but meaningful youth engagement. What's a word that comes to your mind? Any first takers?
I like to say so many words come to your mind, but for me, I think what stands out is feeling freedom, like the freedom to think, the freedom to have your say and be heard. That's just the word for me. Yeah.
I'll go next. I'll say that, like Anna said, like I think of a lot of words. However, a word that stands out mostly to me, I would say it's accountability. Like we are responsible, and everything we do is going to have an impact on the future generations, just as what the previous generation done. That's what's having an impact on us now. So accountability is the best keyword that I can think of.
I think May is stuck. Oh, May is back.
But May is back. May is back. It is your turn now, May. Any keywords that you want to share?
Yeah. Also for me, like I have think of so many things, but I think one word would be the inclusion, because as we all are here from different countries, and we do for the youth engagement, like it how can I say it encourages us to have more inclusions from youths and also from the other people. And so, yeah, I would say inclusion.
Thank you so much, all three, for responding to my spontaneous question. So that brings an end to our panel discussion, but we are not done. Now we want to work directly with our audience to crowdsource some what if statements about education. And this is because education is still very much a topic that we are all interested in. We are so interested in it that the next iteration of the fellowship, which will be starting soon in a couple days, is all about the futures of education. So we have some examples here, such as in May, Zahanath, or Oussama, if you could help me just put the samples in the chat for people to also read. But what if statements could look like, what if all schools had a foresight lab? And I know Teach the Future is very much advocating for teaching futures thinking and foresight at all levels of formal and informal education. So yeah, what would it be like if all schools had a foresight lab? Or what if all schools became innovations hub? So if there are any what if statements or questions that you have been dreaming about or wondering about when it comes to education, I welcome you all to start by sharing them in the chat. And I say start because we definitely do want to hear from some of you to elaborate a little bit more. And just to provide some additional context, like I said, the third iteration of the fellowship will be all about the futures of education. And the what if statements that you shared today, it's a way for us to begin gathering some signals or hints on what people around the world, and we have an intergenerational group here, right? So what people around the world, regardless of their backgrounds, their age, their interest, what they are interested in and what they want to prioritize or what they envision the future could look like when it comes to education. So yes, please feel free to share any what if about education in the chat, and we hope this will get the conversation flowing. And I recognize this is yet another spontaneous question of mine to the audience. So please feel free to take your time if you need to brainstorm a little bit and come up with just one or maybe even two what if statements. I am very intently staring at the chat in the hopes that the what if statements will start emerging. Aha, and they have begun to come in. Amazing. And May, Oussama, Zahanath, if there is a what if statement that, catches your attention, please feel free to invite someone to share.
I was just about to say I love the what if schools resource the skills in local community more effectively. Just to reflect on that, I think that would be so great for a country like Maldives. We follow a Western education system here. And really, I think if we were to teach local complex skills used by the local fishermen or local farmers in school, it would be such a good way to even pass down traditional, even custom knowledge to students. So I think that was just so beautiful.
Then I'll go next. The what if questions, excuse me. What if education is completely personalized? This is an interesting what if. Thinking about if all schools had a system where they try to gather the youth and see in what aspects they'd like to, excuse me, what aspects they'd like the education to, what direction they'd like the education to lead into, and help their students develop their skills personally. I feel that we'd see a lot of students who would feel much more comfortable, they would know what their future looks like. They would have a certain goal, they'd have a direction that they're heading into, rather than just going to school and following a curriculum that everybody is currently following. And at the end of the day, when they finish school or university, they're unsure of what they should do or what they can do, what they cannot do.
Thank you for your reflection, both Zahanath and Oussama. And I see we have one sharing. Oh, Scott, you beat me to it. I was going to invite you because Peter asked you a follow-up question. What do you mean by lifestyle? But you have beat me to it. But regardless, would you like to unmute yourself and elaborate a little bit more on what you mean?
Yeah, totally. I'm thinking more like because we often think of school as the thing we have to do, right? You do it in life and then you're done with it, you can move on, you can actually do stuff. But if we didn't think of it as this thing, we kept it as a sort of a social, societal thing we all engage in, despite what we like or whatever we spend our lives doing. But we're always reading, we're always asking questions, we're always talking with one another and trying to learn. Sort of education as a lifetime vocation, I think is how the Jesuits put it. But everyone has different ways of talking about that. So
Thank you so much for sharing, Scott. And I mean, I agree, even if it's not necessarily maths or science that I'm learning in school, I am constantly learning. For example, I am still constantly learning what it means to meaningfully engage young people and work with them. And if I were to actually add another keyword to what May, Oussama, and Zahanath already shared, I think it would be experimentation, because I really don't think there is one size fits all, especially when you're working with young people from so many different backgrounds. And one of the challenges I think we face in youth engagement is seeing them as this homogenous group, when in fact, all these young people have different backgrounds, different experiences, and different ambitions and hopes. So recognizing that we do need to embrace that spirit of experimentation, trying to plug and play and see what really works for this group of young people as opposed to another group of young people, I think that's really helpful. And, if we could apply that kind of thinking to learning as a whole, regardless of what the topic is, and as you say, see it instead of seeing more of as a lifestyle, and think, what does it mean to be part of this lifelong learning journey? Then I see so many potentials to kind of transform what education is. And instead of seeing schools as this place where you have to go to learn things maybe you're not fully interested in, maybe it's a space where you can just really explore what is out there and organically find some of the things that interest you and really speak to you and kind of light that spark in you. So thank you so much for sharing, Scott. Um, I want to invite, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, but Chaman Nasir. And in the chat, they said, what if we promote practical education rather than relying on the cramming system? And I think this echoes a lot of the things that May said from some of the recommendations that young people from Myanmar shared, right? That they would prefer to learn skills in schools that actually prepare them to go out into the world, and whether it's get a job or lead a movement or whatever it is. I think there's some echoes there. So Chaman Nasir, would you like to come in and elaborate a little bit more on what you mean?
Hi. Chaman is here. I'm from Pakistan. And here, basically, I think there is a problem with the education system of Pakistan. We're not promoting, like, we have to cram. Uh, our education system is based on theoretical study. And, right now we are here and we are trying to, convey our ideas. So I think we need to learn the skills, how to how to talk to others, and we need to learn communication skills. And but we are spending a lot of our time, and not only this is a problem of Pakistan, but other countries like the developing countries, like you are from, I think you are from Myanmar. So I think this is a problem. We are not promoting the practical education. We must inculcate among the students how to produce, how to make innovations, and so I think it will be helpful for us, for the developing countries, to to get the real aim of the education. And I think the developed countries, they are following this path, and they are promoting the practical education, or the pragmatic education. So I think the developing countries, they also need to adopt this path. Yeah.
Thank you so much for elaborating on that, Chaman. And I think, that is definitely, that sentiment is echoed across many different communities and countries. This desire to see a better connection between what we learn in classrooms and what we actually experience out in the world. And I have had many days where I was complaining about my math class, for example. I'm not very great at math. But that complaint came from this sense of frustration, like, why am I even learning this? And I think for some students, more than most maybe, but that lack of clarity on the why is also another reason why there's just so much frustration on being told to learn a set of things when you're still not sure why this is necessary and the value of that subject. So thank you for elaborating on that.
There's just one what if question that I would love more elaboration on. Sadia, I'm sorry if I'm spelling your name wrong. Sadia has wrote, what if schools prioritize futures just as much as history and other subjects? I would love for you to elaborate on this. Because I would love to hear your thoughts. And this was something that was, discussed even in my workshops. They were like, they learned about foresight and they were like, why are we not learning this in school, right? So yeah, I would love for Sadia to come and give some more details
Yeah,
on what
definitely. So I think um when I was still in school, which was not too long ago, I mean, I agree with Ijin that a lot of subjects definitely felt, as if we were forced to learn them. And, we never really got much out of it. But futures is such a diverse field where anyone is able to, like, very easily access information coming in from all different, like, parts of futures. So, for example, agricultural futures, technological futures, um, all of that. Furthermore, I also like mentioned in the chat that I think that our leading bodies and policy making um, structure would be a lot better because, like, as these kids who are right now studying futures in schools grow up to then, eventually become policymakers, they would definitely ensure to take the future into account while making decisions, which I think is a really big issue right now. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Sadia. I mean, I agree. I was first kind of exposed to this world of futures only a couple years ago, but I'm still surprised at how many different areas that I can just apply that kind of mindset and thinking. And I hope that, beyond the young people and children that I get to work directly with, and May and Oussama and Zahanath and everyone in this room gets to work with, we kind of expand on the circle of influence that we have and just plant little seeds here and there, like this is what it's like to think about the future, and you can do it too. So thank you for touching on that. Our time together, I think, is slowly coming to an end. Um, I just wanted to, before I give the closing remarks, I just wanted to invite our panelists, the stars of the show, to share briefly, how you feel, what it was like to um, have access to this space to share some of your findings and your sentiments about the future of education. Anyone want to have a go?
Sure, I'll go ahead first. Honestly, I'll say that I'm feeling extremely excited, getting the opportunity to introduce the country that's not well known around the world. Like, I'm sure maybe 1 out of 10 people know about Comoros Islands in this with us right now. So Comoros Island, it's a small island between Madagascar and Mozambique, and the challenges that we are facing aren't known like by the world. So doing my research and like the Young Visionaries report and a lot of the research that were done and that were published, I hope that more people would come to know about what's happening in Comoros and the findings that we've done, and it would be an eye opener for them later onwards, so that if they see current trends that are happening in their countries, that they can try to stop stop the worst from happening in their countries as well. And I'm glad to have all of you here and seeing a lot of you. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll jam in. So, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to share about my insights because of the ongoing conflicts happening in here, discussing about these kinds of insights and these kinds of topic openly is very challenging for me. And many young people in our country didn't have a space or platform to voice their concerns. So it is this section means so much to me, and it is very great to be here with like-minded people like all of you. And yeah, this discussion has given me a new perspective and ideas, and I hope we can continue working together to create a better future. And yeah.
just want to say I echo both what Oussama and May has said. Speaking about the situation in Maldives, everybody would think, when I say I'm from Maldives, oh, it's paradise. Yeah, but it's nice to share about the situation that the lived experiences and aspirations of young people in Maldives in a space like this. And I'm really privileged to, be part of, learn about foresight and share these things. And that's not something a lot of young people here in Maldives have. They don't have access to foresight. And so I always, like to think, you know, I have that, I have to make this accessible in Maldives. And I think, global platforms like this is really important in spreading more awareness on foresight and future literacy. So I think I feel like I feel very privileged, but at the same time, I'm, as Agent said, we are planting the seeds, and I really hope, you know, more young people are involved in future decision making spaces. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you first to our three panelists. You know, being able to share this space with you, the fellowship alumni, again, it's been such a joy and just made me kind of reflect on, the journey that we were on to build our foresight capacities together, designing your research projects, and then just starting to unearth all these nuggets of wisdom that you found in your communities and countries. It's been a joy, and I'm glad we had this space to revisit a little bit of that today. And the three of you and also the rest of our fellowship alumni, the journeys that you have been on is another reason why I'm super excited that the third iteration of the fellowship is starting soon. And as you can see from the responses in the chat, education is, regardless of your background or your past experiences, it is something that speaks to a great many people. So I'm excited to see what new nuggets of wisdom we unearth in the next fellowship. And to our audience, thank you for first showing up and second being so engaged. I assure you, all the what if statements that you have shared in the chat, I have taken note of them. They are in my very messy document, but I will be polishing them up very soon. So yes, thank you for sharing those signals and sharing a little bit about why this is important to you or why you see the future that way. So thank you. As Zahanath said, we hope this session planted some seeds in your minds. And if there are any seeds that are questions that we can answer right now, we can do a little bit of that too. But you know my name. I think you can probably find me on LinkedIn. So if there is anything that you need more clarity on or you would like to further discuss, just please know I will do my best to check my messages. Thank you so much. Maybe I will pass it now back to Manya.
Mm.